Are you working on your author career but struggling to get that first book published? Does the goal of being an author seem too lofty? Or thoughts of having multiple books and making a full-time living are as fantastical as living in Cinderella's castle? Welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, a podcast where aspiring authors can be heard. Join Stephen Schneider as he finds and talks to authors you may not know, but authors that have gotten their foot on the author career path. Hear what they've done to get there and where they want to go now. Settle back. It's time for a bit of inspiration and advice. Come listen to today's Discovered Wordsmith.
So, Judy, welcome back to the second half of our talk on the podcast. This time, we're going to talk a bit more about the things that authors might be interested in. So, to get started, you've got 2 books out now and you're working on a third one. What have you learned after writing your first book that you're doing different with your second and third book?
That's a hard question.
Sorry.
I'm not going to take 17 years to write the second book.
There you go.
But as far as process, once I really sat down and started to write as a job, so to speak, as opposed to when I could make it fit into my life, I developed the process pretty quickly. And I've pretty much stuck to that, the things that I learned to do, probably the biggest thing that I learned to do in writing the first book was to set a daily goal. And
of number of words?
Of number of words.
Okay.
And to physically sit myself down and work at it every day. I didn't always meet the goal. And sometimes life sort of interferes. A week ago, Wednesday, I didn't get anything written because I was glued to the post.
Right.
Sometimes you get sick. As long as you consistently try to do that and you succeed most days, it's going to get written, and it's going to get written in a fairly timely manner. The book that came out today, To the Bitter End, I started in May of 2020. That's certainly better.
Right. Less than a year as opposed to. Right.
I started the one that I'm 30% done in October. And the only reason I'm not farther along in that and close to finished is because I spent the entire month of December editing To the Bitter End as opposed to writing new stuff because I wanted to get it out in January. And I was, editing's a lot more work than you think it's going to be.
Right. Yes. And I also found as I learned more, I'd go back to review things and edit and revise. And I think a lot of my writing started to come out in the editing and revision. If I get something down, even if it's clunky or it's not exactly what I want to end up with, that when I go back and edit and revise, I feel a little more relaxed and I can actually write more the way I want to write and write the story I want to get out more so.
Well, what I developed in the first book through the help of many people, but especially through the help of the instructors that I had at the Muse Writer Center in Norfolk, how to go about editing. And I'd never edited anything that large that wasn't technical material before. So that whole thing was a learning experience. And it took me less time to edit the second book, but I followed basically the same process. Mm-hmm. And my process turned out to be, the minute I finish writing the book, I compile it into a document and I send it to my Kindle. And I read it start to finish that night. Told you I read fast. It doesn't matter if I stay up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning because I'm retired.
Right.
And I'm a night person anyway. So I read it right then. As soon as it's fresh in my mind, I take no notes. I just want to experience it as a book. Is it really a book or is it just sort of not? Then I do something else for 3 weeks to a month. Let it just sit there because you need that space.
Right. I agree.
Come back and look at it with fresh eyes.
Yep.
Then I do another read through, but this time I take notes. And the notes I'm looking for, I'm not looking for grammatical errors and picky stuff at this point. I'm looking for, are there inconsistencies? Are there things that don't make sense? Is there missing information? Is there stuff in there that doesn't need to be in there, that doesn't really bring the story along. For instance, in the first book, I actually wiped 2 characters out completely. Like, I had these characters, but they don't really do anything except take up space. And the book was a lot better because I did. Then, so that's where I take the kind of notes. What are the major changes I want to make to this? What are the things I need to do to make it consistent? Like one of the books, fantasy books that I'm working on editing, one of the things I wanted to do was make one of the main characters a stronger character than she appeared in the first draft. She's very badass now.
And I do the same thing. I when I revise and edit check, I make sure the characters are consistent and are the way I view them. It's very easy sometimes between chapters to make a character act completely different than what they should.
Or change the spelling of their name.
Yeah, that's common, very, very much, especially fantasy.
Yeah. Well, for a while, I had 2 books that were going on that had characters with different names, but they were close. And I kept getting them mixed between the 2 books. So I finally took one character and I just changed his name to something completely different and did a global replace.
Yep.
And then it didn't mix the 2 books up anymore. But things like that, things like I introduced these people in the mid book and they joined the journey. This is a book that was a quest kind of book. Mm-hmm. And then you don't see them again. It's like, well, wait a minute. I got to put those people back in here at the end because they came to the battle with them.
Right.
Yeah,
I've read books. I read a book.
I make notes. And then I open up Scrivener, which I couldn't live without Scrivener. And I have the notes on the right side of the screen in a little tiny narrow window and the book in the main screen. And then as I go through, because some of these are things that need to go through chapter by chapter and they're, interspersed through the whole book. Having that on the screen reminds me that, oh yeah, I need to make sure I do this. And then when I finally get that particular thing all done, I cross it off on my list. So I know I've made that change. And then I get into the really picky editing and I send the book out for other people to read.
And sometimes
that's the same process I used in the second book. It's the same process I'll use in the third book, but I've developed it in the first book.
And sometimes when I do my third or fourth read through and editing, I will read it backwards. I'll read the last chapter first and then the next and go backwards through the book. And I've picked up things that I hadn't picked up reading it, normally. So I like that technique.
That's true. That's probably a good idea. I used to do that when I was a technical editor, read backwards.
And you mentioned that you use Scrivener. Do you like Scrivener and you use it for your writing mostly?
I would marry Scrivener. I do all of my writing in Scrivener.
When your first book, when you started it years ago, what were you using for that?
I started it in Word, but I finished it in Scrivener. The thing I like about Scrivener is I can set it up so that I have all of the research, etc., that I need, which, of course, when I first started the book, I didn't know I needed all this stuff.
Right.
Nobody knows in the first book they need this stuff. Right there at my fingertips. So I have, every time I introduce a new character in a scene, I throw them into my character section so that later, and I don't write a lot about it necessarily, especially if it's a minor character, but later when I'm like, oh yeah, who is that officer that they were talking to about this? I need to bring him back up again. Now I have his name easy in a place that it's easy to find. You can link to websites or et cetera, whatever in there. You can have whole research sections where you talk about, one of the books I'm working on right now is going to be set in sort of an quasi-Egyptian steampunk setting.
Nice. I haven't read one of those before.
And of course it's a fantasy, so it's not real Egypt.
Well,
it's not even going to be called Egypt, but it's kind of that sort of a Middle Eastern vibe. And it's going to have genies and alligators and stuff like that. That's going to be a really fun book. It's probably going to be my favorite when I get it finished.
That sounds interesting. I'd love to talk to you about that after it comes out.
It's called The Society of Widows.
Okay.
It's about these widows who group together and decide to become an intelligence organization for their government.
Oh, that That sounds like something I'd love to read.
It's going to be the most fun book ever.
Nice. So
But
let's talk a bit about our big topic that we were going to discuss. So you're starting out a totally different career than what you've ever done, and you've got a book or two, but you don't have anybody on your email list. You don't have any money for marketing. The question is, what do you do and how do you get people on your list? So let me start by asking Judy, what have you done to get people on your list and what are you doing for marketing?
I don't have an email list at all.
Okay. So
I the people who know me, I have other ways to reach, and the people that don't know me, I don't know their email.
right.
So, yes, starting an email list is something I need to do, but I haven't done it, and I don't really know how to start it.
So have you done any type of marketing other than getting people to read your book?
I've been posting things on Instagram. I have an author's page on Goodreads. I have a Facebook group that has no members. It has 3 members. One of them is my sister.
So are you
but
getting,
it's there if people ever start to look for it.
are you getting any traction on Instagram, and why'd you choose Instagram?
Well, I chose Instagram because there's a lot of book oriented stuff on Instagram.
Okay.
And I have 75 followers, which is not horrible, but it's not great.
Right. Oh, you got, so,
But I've been gaining followers since I've been doing it. So it's not just my friends. I'm getting followers from the people who are searching specifically for book related hashtags.
So you are getting some traction.
It might take a couple of years to build up to being something major, but at least it's a start.
Right. Right. So, do you have your Instagram linked in with your Facebook so that they cross post, or people can go to Instagram and see what your Facebook name and address is?
Not directly. I probably ought to do that.
I was just asking because I think a lot of times, and I like that you
I
targeted
post links to things, but it's not there all the time, if you know what I mean.
Right. Okay.
So I need to find a way to make it there all the time. That's a good point.
In your profile or something. Yeah, I think there's little things like that I think would probably help that a lot of authors miss. And the more things you put out there, the harder it gets to get everything coordinated. Because you said you have a Goodreads profile. Does that link to your Instagram or point to it?
I believe that one does, yes.
Okay. So I think for new authors, like, I have no money, I don't have a list, what do I do? I think you've got the right approach, finding the social media that you like and that looks promising. And you've got some already. Do you have a website or anything to gather email?
No.
Okay. Are you thinking of doing a website, or do you want to just keep with Instagram and
the problem
Facebook?
with doing a good website, is you need to pay for hosting.
True.
And I'm on Social Security.
The books have to pay for themselves.
You can buy groceries every week of the month. There's no money until I start to sell more books.
So just first of all, for all the people that may listen, all the writers like, well, all these other authors, have all these big budgets with all these ads. That's not true. There's plenty of authors that struggle to get marketing and get a list. One of the things I've used, and honestly, I haven't been there in a while, is called Story Origin. Have you heard of that?
No, but I'm taking notes.
Okay. Story Origin worked for me, and I think, so as of right now, storyoriginApp.com. Right now, it is still in beta. They are still working on it. So all of their plans are free right now to try.
Well, that sounds good right now.
there you go. So at some point, they're going to charge, though they may still have some basic free plan. I don't know. They haven't said. But I've used that, and essentially you put a book up there. Now, it's usually a book for free that you then join some promotions with other authors, And every author sends out or alerts their list about these books, and people go look, they click on your book, sign up for your list, and they get the free book. So that is how I started to build my list and get people on my email list. So that would be something I would say
That's a
any
good
author
idea,
could check
but
out.
I think that would have to be something that I don't have on Kindle Unlimited.
Uh,
Because you're limited to the Amazon
yes.
world
And,
when you're on Kindle Unlimited.
and that's definitely an issue when you go with Kindle Unlimited. Here's what I would recommend, and what I've done too, is for your series of books, write a short story prequel or an offshoot short story with the characters and use that for the free promotions. Put that as your reader
Okay, so it doesn't
magnet.
have to be a whole novel length book.
Not always. It depends on the promotion. There's a lot of promotions in there, and some are like you can have a short story. Some are like has to be a full book.
I
So you
already
just
have
have to,
one of those.
yeah, but it's a full book to offer in the promotion.
Yeah,
So
but I mean, I already have short stories that are offshoots of my
okay,
two of them actually of
you
my.
should look into it.
So
That'd be
I
my.
should look into that. Plus, I'm working on, and it'll be done probably by March, a short story collection book
There you go.
of short stories about swords,
Oh, cool.
and that would be a good one that I could put in a place like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you make sure you have the links in there to your Instagram and Facebook and your Goodreads profile.
And do
And
that about the time I put the fantasy books up
yeah,
for sale, and then they'll have something that would lead them to what they would want to read.
right. And then you
That's a good idea.
make sure and announce any promos you're in on all of your social media and point them back to it. Cause that's how they work. If there's 10 authors all with books, each author promotes the promotion to their list. So if all 10 of those people have 60, then you've got 600 people coming to that page. So you're likely to get some of the audience from those other authors. And then hopefully it grows, they become interested. And
Well, now
most of
that's
those,
something else that I was online talking to Nathan Lowell, who's a very successful independently published author, and he says one of the things that you should do is make friends with other authors and get them to push your book to their group. Of course, right now it's difficult to actually make physical friends with people because I don't even see my actual real life friends right now.
yeah.
You know,
Well, I
but
mean,
you
that's
know,
very
and
true.
one of the ways to do that is to go to local conventions and so forth,
Right.
which,
Well, you're going to have this podcast, and I promote the podcast. So
I know,
hopefully
and
we'll
I'm
get
really
some
happy that you wanted
sci-fi
me
readers.
on.
Yeah. One of
Um,
the funny things I caution, and this may just be me, some people may disagree, but I go to some writer conventions, some conferences where it's all these talks on your craft, on your marketing, on getting your book published, all sort that's focused on the writer. And then they always have tables that the speakers set up and they have their books for sale. And I always see a couple tables with authors who weren't speakers but they set up with their book for sale. And I'm like, you are promoting your fantasy book to other authors who are trying to write and promote their own fantasy book. It just doesn't seem like the right market.
no, it doesn't, does it?
And,
But on the other hand, if you have 500 books that you bought and gotta get, even if you sell only two of them, it gets the pile down.
well, that's
I can't
true.
do that because I can't afford to buy 500 books.
True. But I think there's better ways of marketing yourself.
Oh, sure.
Figure out
Science
who your
fiction
readers are.
conventions are a better way to market yourself if you're in the science fiction fantasy world.
Yes.
And
If you're
I live in a city, so we have those. Well,
right.
we had those before COVID.
Yeah, remember those days? It's much better to figure out who your target reader is and not just say, "Oh, these are authors, they like books, they'll like my sci-fi book." Yeah, well there's 500 other authors at the conference with sci-fi books. So, you're not going to
Better
sell
to
a
give
lot.
away books at that place
Yeah, and actually
so that
I
you can
know
hook on to their audience if they read it and say, "Hey, I really like this."
Yeah,
I
and I know an author that goes to festivals and conferences and stuff, and he doesn't even bother to sell. If you come up and you're interested, he just hands you a book. He's like, if I sat here all day, I might sell 3 or 4 books. It's not worth my time to pull out the Stripe reader and run the credit cards. I'd rather have somebody read it and give me feedback. And I think that's going to be the next thing I mention is all your family and friends and all that 75 people on your list, encourage them to go to Amazon, since that's where your book is at, and leave a review, because the reviews are big. The more reviews you have, the
Oh yeah, and
more
but
people are
boy, is
interested.
it like pulling teeth
Yes, it
to
can
get
be.
this. I've had probably 10 people who promised me a review who haven't written it yet,
Yeah, same here.
and you know, and I keep reminding them, but it's like, and I had a guy who I knew from the Nathan Lowell's page that wanted to read my book, and he read my book, and he really liked my book, and he's like, I'd love to read your next book before it comes out and, beta read. And I said, sure, I'd be glad to let you read it. You just have to leave a review on my other book first. Oh, yeah, I'll do that. Never did it.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, okay. Well, I'm not going to just let you read for free my book that I'm selling. And I happen to know this guy has Kindle Unlimited, so it's not like he's paying for the books anyway. Um,
So,
well,
are there any other?
but it's like I earn money when you read my book. I'm not going to let you do it for free if you don't do something to help me out.
That's true. I know the recommended advice on your first book is just get it out there, get as many people to read it, and hopefully leave reviews. Is there any other marketing or things that you've heard about or that you're thinking about doing?
Not really. I think we've covered most of it right now. Um, my Facebook page, of course, is where I've shared most of of the things that about my book and gotten most of my readers from. And
Okay.
it's
Well, it'll be really interesting after your third book gets out and you have another year of some things. I know a lot of people say, once you have that first 3 books, the first trilogy out, people get into it more. They're more willing to buy it and all that. So I'd love to talk to you about all this a year from now, same topic, and see how things are going after that.
I was reading somebody had done a study about how much money various independent authors made and what they had done in terms of marketing, et cetera, at the various different amounts of money that they've made. And the single biggest difference between all the groups was the number of books they had out.
So that's kind of the advice overall is
The
keep
advice
writing and get more books
overall for beginners was get more books out. And for me, that makes a lot of sense because have you ever discovered an author and then you're like, oh, good, I've got another 7 books I can read?
Right. Yep.
You know, so that makes a lot of sense to me that what I need to concentrate on, I need to do some marketing, but I need to be aware that the payoff is probably a year to 2 years down the road.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And it's been hard for me and for a lot of authors. They get that first book done and they want to get out there and market it and make it the biggest seller. And everybody should read my book. It's wonderful. It's great. But they, don't realize there's 100 other thousand people that have said that in the last week.
Yeah.
So, when someone who's been around for a while, you say, what can I do to get my book noticed? What can I do to get people buying and reading my book? And they say, well, write more books. You get the reaction a lot of times of like blink, 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 confusion, and then they ignore it and go ask somebody else, what can I do? And that really is the advice. Go write more books. Once you
It
have,
really, really, I mean, most people don't want to take a risk on an author that only has one book.
right. And,
Even when
and
you have Kindle Unlimited and you're not paying for that book specifically.
right. And
And
even BookBub, they don't even want to talk to you unless you have several books out and you have a certain number of reviews.
yeah,
If they don't even want to worry about it.
yes. Now, if we get the $1,400 more that Biden would like to give us, I'll probably use some of that to buy some advertising.
Which advertising are you thinking of doing?
I've found an awful lot of books that I've read through Facebook advertising, so I'll probably go with that.
Uh, I know a lot of people have been using Amazon ads, especially if they're in Kindle Unlimited, but also a lot of people now are saying with the traditional publishers going into Amazon ads that they're not as effective and they cost more. So I know a lot of people get really good results from Facebook ads.
Yeah, I've probably found 30 books in the last year from Facebook ads because, of course, I'm in a bunch of groups that relate to books and authors and writing, and so I get a lot of Facebook ads that relate to books, and I click on them, so that makes their algorithm say, "Oh, she likes to read books."
Right.
More books, more book ads.
Now, when
And
you
I'd
see
really
the
rather get book ads than ads for things like
mattresses,
heart disease medication.
so when you see a Facebook ad, you can click on, there's a link for more information or something, and it will tell you like the audience that was targeted for the ad. Have you done any of that to see what other authors are doing to target you and see
No,
if
but
that would
that's a
help?
good idea, and I probably should do that.
Yeah, that's probably,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're getting all these book ads anyway, might as well learn from what other people are doing or at least see what they're doing because you don't know how successful they really are.
Well,
But you could, I mean, any of the books that you look at the ads and see who they're targeting and all that stuff, you could then go look it up on Amazon and see what their ranking is. If you're looking at this ad and the ranking is like 3 million, they're not getting good results. But if the ranking's like 100, well, hey, they've got good results from that, obviously.
I did a in preparation for the second book. I did a 5-day free on Amazon,
Hmm.
and I got another 20 or 30 readers out of that. That doesn't sound like much, but some of those people are going to come back for the second book.
Right. Have you looked into setting up like MailChimp or something, an email list to get these people on? Because like the first set is free. I believe that may have changed, but it's been where you get so many for free. And that might be a good way to kick it off and get started.
Well, that might be something I'll do with the money that we might get, the $1,400 to
Oh, yeah.
to actually buy some email lists to get started.
Well, be careful with that. I know it has bitten some people in the butt. I would probably work with Story Origin first and try that for a little bit.
Okay.
I'd be cautious about buying a list and sending to it. You might not get as good results, or you may even get yourself in trouble.
Okay.
All right.
I might also
Well,
do another free promotion and do an Amazon ad at the same time.
yeah, all these things. That's how you find out what works for you is the experimentation. Because even if I tell you, oh, Amazon ads are great, it may not work for you in your book. The genre, the
Well,
people, or whatever.
I've read a lot of people who say that if you have more than one book, the free promotion helps tremendously to build an audience. And combine that with an ad campaign at the same time, I can see where that could start to grow your audience a great deal. Because, people are willing to take a chance on something they don't have to pay for.
Right. Yep.
And the other thing I've done is I've reduced the price on the first book to 99 cents, which is the lowest permanent price you can put it at in Amazon.
Right.
And so hopefully that'll drive some people in too as and I might try to get onto some of those Amazon promotions for the books in that. Love it.
Well, again, I'd love to hear, we're talking to you right near the beginning of you doing all this. I'd love to hear in a year to a year and a half how things have gone, what you found that worked and didn't.
Yeah.
So Judy, before we get going here, do you have any last minute advice that you would give new authors?
The first piece of advice I would give a new author is to write your story. Say what you want to say. So many people will try to tell you, oh, that's not marketable. That's a bad idea. If it's what you want to say it. The next thing that I want to say to people is every project, and I do mean every project, always has at least 1 sometimes more times when you personally think everything is garbage and you cannot possibly finish this and that it's just horrible. That happens in every project. It's normal. It's to be expected. And when you hit it, it's a good sign because usually it means you're about to hit a breakthrough. And that's not just in writing projects. I mean, that's every kind of project I ever did. A software project, a manpower study, class that I was teaching. Every project has some point when you think this is garbage and I can't do this.
So just keep writing.
What?
So just keep writing.
Keep writing. Take your daily word count and do it. And do the daily word count. That helped me tremendously to focus. And even if you're not into it that day, and you're like, I can't think of anything to say, write, I can't think of anything to say over and over and over again until your block breaks. It'll break after about 30 or 40 tries.
Nice. I'll have to try that next time.
I got that one from a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And she has this thing called morning pages where you write 3 pages every day of just whatever's on your mind. And that's what you do. You just write. If you can't think of anything to say, you just write. I can't think of anything to say. And what it does is it gets you actually writing, and that kind of breaks the block in your head that you can't write. And then you get tired of writing that over and over again, and your brain says, let me write something more interesting. And I found it really works for me. I don't say that it'll work for everybody, but it's certainly worth trying.
Okay. I like that. We'll have to give that a try next time.
If you have the chance and the money, take writing workshops where your work will be critiqued. You can't fix what you don't know is broken.
Right. Find some people you trust and value.
Trust. I like the writing workshops because they don't know you as a person when you first take them. We have a writing center that's one of the best writing centers in the country. It's local to me, called the Muse Writing Center, and they give classes and they give scholarships too, which is fortunate for me. Their classes are all online right now, and they're going to continue to have some of them online after the pandemic is over and they go back to in-person classes because they found they've attracted a new audience that they didn't have before.
Right, I'm sure.
But some of the best feedback I have gotten has been from those writing workshops, where people who, this past term, I took a writing workshop with a lady I'm probably going to take workshops with for forever from now on because she gives such great feedback. But I was giving them the first chapters of the book that I just published today to the bitter end. Now, that none of them had read the first book. And it gave me great feedback because not everybody who reads your second book is going to have read your first book. And when they're linked. And the questions that they asked of what was confusing to them made me able to make the book a better book because it was stuff that I had in my head. Well, people will know that. That was in the first book. People will know that. Well, no, it wasn't. These people didn't know it. They weren't science fiction readers, and they had a lot of things that made me see my book differently. And they made the book a lot better by an order of magnitude of about 1,000%.
Nice. Good. All right. Well, Judy, I love talking to you today. I appreciate you taking some time to talk to us.
I'm very happy to have done this. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to Discovered Wordsmiths. Come back next week and listen to another author discuss the road they've traveled, and maybe, sometime in the near future, it might be you.